The fluorescent lights above the diner office flickered like they were mocking me. I stood there, holding my breath, gripping the strap of my worn-out bag as if it could hold my pride together. My hands were trembling, not from fear this time, but from exhaustion. I had worked every double shift, every late night, every table full of drunks who never tipped enough to matter. And still, here I was, begging for what I had already earned. "Please, Mr. Carson," I said, my voice barely steady. "It was my last week. You promised the check would be ready today." He sighed like I was asking for a favor instead of my pay. His round face glistened with sweat as he pushed a stack of receipts aside. "You quit without notice, Elena. You know company policy. It takes time." That name, Elena, it barely felt like mine anymore. It sounded foreign, like something left behind in another lifetime. I swallowed hard. "I did not quit," I said quietly. "You cut my hours until I had no choice. I have rent due tomorrow. Please, I need that money." His chair squeaked as he leaned back, eyes avoiding mine. "Come back next Friday." Next Friday. I almost laughed. By next Friday, my landlord would have changed the locks, and the last bit of my food would be gone. I had stopped hoping for kindness in this city a long time ago, but I had not expected cruelty to sound so casual. I felt my voice shake as I said, "You owe me for 43 hours, Mr. Carson. That is all I want. I am not asking for anything else." He shrugged, his gaze moving to the clock on the wall. "You should have thought about that before you left." Before I left. As if I had ever been the one to walk away. Something in me cracked then, not loud, not visible, just the sound of a person breaking quietly. I stared down at the faded linoleum floor, counting the stains instead of the tears burning in my eyes. I had learned to stay silent, to endure, to swallow every scream. The hum of the diner outside felt far away, plates clattering, coffee brewing, a jukebox stuck on the same sad song. Life went on indifferent. When I finally spoke, my voice was low. "So that is it?" Mr. Carson did not answer. He just turned toward the paperwork again. That was my answer. I turned too, ready to walk out and face another sleepless night wondering how to survive the next one. My feet felt heavy, like each step was through quicksand. The air outside the office was thick with grease and cheap perfume. Waitresses moved between tables with fake smiles, and the neon sign buzzing by the window threw a red glow across the floor. I wanted to disappear into that light and never come back. And then I heard it. A voice. Deep, steady, familiar in a way that made my body freeze before my mind could understand why. "Coffee," he said. Just that. A simple order. But the sound of it scraped against my memory like a match against old paper. I did not turn around. I did not need to. Every nerve in me already knew. The last time I had heard that voice, the world had been on fire, and so had my heart. My hands went cold as I stared at the coffee pot, pretending to pour. The noise of the diner faded. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. I told myself it was impossible. It had been 6 years. 6 long years of running, of hiding, of becoming someone else. "Excuse me," he said again, this time closer. I looked down, desperate to stay invisible. "One moment," I whispered. My voice cracked, betraying me. And then he said my name. Not the one on my paycheck. Not the one I had been using for the last 6 years to stay safe. He said my real name. The name I buried with my past. Elena. The sound of it cut through me like glass. My fingers slipped, and the mug shattered against the counter. Coffee splashed across the floor. Every muscle in my body locked as I finally turned to face him. There he was, standing in the doorway, the man I had loved when I was still naive enough to believe in forever. Luca Moretti. The boy who once promised he would die for me was now the man who could make others die with a single word. His suit was dark, tailored, his eyes colder than winter rain. But behind that steel, I saw it, the same storm that had once saved me and destroyed me. For a moment, no one in the diner moved. It was as if the whole room held its breath with me. Then he spoke again, his voice low, almost tender. "I thought you were dead." My world stopped breathing. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. His words hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. "I thought you were dead." I wanted to tell him that maybe I was, that whatever piece of me he remembered had stopped existing the night I ran. But my throat was dry, my voice buried under 6 years of silence. Luca stood there in the doorway, his shadow stretching across the tiled floor. The diner's neon light flickered across his face, breaking through the polished surface of his calm expression. He was older now, sharper, the softness I once knew replaced by something colder, quieter, more dangerous. The boy I loved had turned into a man I barely recognized. Yet, when his eyes met mine, everything inside me remembered. I took a step back, my heels slipping on the spilled coffee. His hand moved, too fast, too familiar, and before I could pull away, he caught my wrist. The touch sent a jolt through me, and suddenly every heartbeat echoed with the sound of his voice from years ago, whispering my name under a sky full of fireworks. "Let me go," I said. It came out softer than I intended. He released me instantly, but his eyes did not move. "You disappeared," he said, his voice calm but trembling at the edges. "No trace. No calls. No funeral. Nothing. Funeral." The word sent a chill through me. I looked away, my gaze falling on the broken mug. "You should not have been looking," I said. "Some ghosts are meant to stay buried." He almost smiled, almost. "Ghosts do not bleed. I saw you just now. You are real." I hated that part of me wanted to hear him say it again, to remind me I was still human. 6 years of surviving had turned me into something mechanical. Eat, work, hide, repeat. But with him standing here, memories I had spent years starving out of existence came flooding back, warm and cruel at once. I forced myself to turn away, grabbing a towel, cleaning the mess as if pretending could make him vanish. "You should leave," I said. "People talk. I do not want trouble here." "Trouble," he echoed, his voice low, like a secret. "You think that is what I brought you?" I glanced at him then, my breath catching. His eyes softened for the briefest second. "You are shaking," he said. "It is cold," I lied. He looked around the diner, the peeling walls, the empty booths, the life I had built out of scraps, and his jaw tightened. "This is where you ended up?" he asked. "After everything?" His tone was not cruel. It was wounded. That made it worse. I clenched my fists, forcing strength into my voice. "You should not be here, Luca. Whatever you are now, whatever world you live in, it is not mine anymore." For a moment, he said nothing. Then he reached into his coat and set a small folded bill on the counter. $100 note. "For the coffee," he said. The absurdity of it made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. "I cannot take that," I whispered. "You already did," he said softly. "You took everything from me the night you left." That hit harder than I expected. The sound of plates clinking behind us, the murmur of customers, it all blurred into static. I stared at him, trying to find anger, trying to find the hatred that would keep me safe. But all I found was the ache I had spent years trying to forget. He took a step closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "Why did you leave, Elena? Tell me." My throat tightened. "Because staying would have killed me." "And leaving killed me," he said. There it was, the truth we both had buried, spoken like a wound reopening. The air between us pulsed with everything unsaid. 6 years ago, he had been the boy with wild dreams, the one who kissed me behind closed doors and swore he would protect me from the world. But the world had swallowed him whole, turned him into something else, something untouchable, unstoppable. I wanted to ask how he found me. I wanted to ask why he came. But the way his eyes lingered on my face told me he had been looking for me for a very long time. I forced my voice to steady. "You should not have come here, Luca. Please." He exhaled slowly, that faint, dangerous calm returning. "Do you really think I would see you and walk away?" "I think you should," I whispered. He tilted his head, studying me. "You were never good at lying." Before I could respond, a waitress passed by, staring a little too long. Luca noticed. Without breaking eye contact, he pulled a business card from his jacket and slid it onto the counter beside the $100 bill. The white card gleamed under the fluorescent light, his name embossed in gold, a symbol I did not recognize beneath it. "If you ever need me," he said quietly, "do not run. Just call." His voice had that same command I remembered, the kind that made people obey before they even thought to question. Then he turned and walked toward the door, his presence cutting through the diner's noise like a blade through smoke. I stood frozen, my breath shallow, my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. The bell above the door rang softly as he left, and with it, something inside me shattered. When I finally looked down, the card was still there, next to the folded money. My name, Elena Rossi, was written in his handwriting across the back. My chest tightened. He had known where to find me all along. And as the sound of his footsteps faded into the night, I realized the past I thought I buried had just walked back into my life, wearing a suit, carrying my name like a secret he had never stopped guarding. I kept telling myself I would not see him again, that I would pretend last night never happened, that the echo of his voice would fade if I just worked long enough, kept busy enough, breathed slow enough. But the truth was, sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him standing in that doorway again, looking at me like time had not passed at all. The next evening, the diner was quieter. The kind of silence that carries a warning. The regulars were gone, replaced by men in dark suits who drank their coffee too slowly and spoke in voices too low. My chest tightened when I realized who they belonged to. His world had already followed him here. Then I saw him. Lucas stepped out of a black car parked across the street, the kind that did not belong in this neighborhood. The moment he entered, the air changed. Conversations died mid-sentence. The cook froze halfway through flipping an omelet. His presence was not loud, it was heavier than sound. Power had a way of filling the room before he even said a word. He wore a charcoal suit this time, the jacket cut perfectly to his frame, his hair slicked back with the precision of someone used to control. But it was not the expensive fabric or the quiet authority that unsettled me. It was the eyes. Those same eyes that once held laughter now carried something colder. Something that had seen too much. I tried to act like I did not see him. I wiped the counter again, though it was already spotless. But then he spoke, and my hand stopped moving. Still pretending I am not here? I looked up slowly. You should not be. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that once meant trouble, and still did. You always said that, he replied. And yet here we are. I forced myself to meet his gaze. You cannot just walk into my life like nothing happened. He leaned against the counter, lowering his voice. Elena, I spent years looking for you. Do you think I came all this way just to walk out? His tone was calm, but beneath it was something else, a warning, maybe, or desperation. I could not tell which scared me more. You changed, I said. He tilted his head, studying me like a puzzle he almost remembered how to solve. So did you? No, I whispered. You became someone else. He did not deny it. The world demanded it. I wanted to ask what kind of world forces someone to bury who they used to be, but I already knew the answer. The same world that made me run. The same world that turned him into this, a man with the kind of quiet confidence only danger wears. I came to make sure you are safe, he said finally. I almost laughed. From what? You. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed soft. From the people who might notice you before I did. Something in the way he said it made the air colder. I took a step back. I do not need your protection. He gave a short, humorless chuckle. That is not a choice anymore. The word stung. Do not talk to me like I am one of your men. You are not, he said. That is why I am here. The lights flickered briefly. Somewhere outside, an engine revved and then cut off. The sound made him glance toward the window, not fear, but calculation. Then his eyes came back to me, steady and unreadable. I will take you home, he said. I can walk. It is not safe. It never was. Elena. Just my name, but the way he said it froze me. Command and concern, woven together in a tone that felt far too familiar. Get your things. I said no. He sighed, a trace of frustration slipping through. You always mistake protection for control. And you always mistake control for love. The silence that followed was unbearable. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the faintest flicker of something human, something raw beneath the surface. Maybe the boy I once knew was still in there, buried deep beneath the weight of power and loss. Finally, he said quietly, I cannot let you walk home alone. Not tonight. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the way he said not tonight, like he knew something I did not. Whatever it was, I stopped fighting. I grabbed my bag, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. He held the door open as I stepped outside, the cold night air biting at my skin. The black car waited at the curb, sleek, tinted, expensive. A man stood near the driver's side, nodding at Luca before stepping back into the shadows. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to run. But my legs moved on their own. As I reached for the car door, I caught a glimpse of his reflection in the window, calm, composed, untouchable. Then something red caught my eye. At first, I thought it was a trick of the streetlight. But when he adjusted his cufflink, the smear became clear, a dark stain, fresh and wet, hidden beneath the silver glint. Blood. I froze, my hand hovering just above the handle. He noticed my stare, then followed my gaze down to his wrist. For the briefest second, his expression faltered, a flicker of something dangerous, secret. Elena, he said softly, like he was trying to pull me back into his gravity. But I could not move. The man who once swore to protect me was standing there, calm as the night, with someone else's blood on his sleeve. And in that moment, I realized I was not just stepping into his car. I was stepping back into a world I had barely escaped alive. The car door closed with a soft thud, sealing me inside a silence that felt heavier than the night. The city stretched ahead, its lights blurring into streaks of gold and blue through the tinted glass. I sat rigid in the back seat, the faint hum of the engine mixing with the rhythm of my heartbeat. Luca was only a few inches away, but it felt like an entire lifetime separated us. He had taken off his jacket and tossed it beside him, the white of his shirt catching the glow of passing streetlights. The blood on his cufflink was gone, or maybe it had just disappeared into the darkness. Either way, I could not stop thinking about it. I wanted to ask. I wanted to know whose blood it was, and why it never seemed to bother him. But the words caught somewhere between my throat and my pride. He broke the silence first. "You are still quiet when you are scared," he said softly, not looking at me. "I am not scared," I lied. He gave a small, knowing smile. "You always were a terrible liar." The city rolled by outside. The same streets we once walked when we were nothing but reckless kids with empty pockets and wild dreams. But now everything looked smaller, harder, colder. "Where did you go?" he asked suddenly. "All these years." I kept my eyes on the window. "Away." He waited, as if expecting more, but when I stayed quiet, he said, "That is not an answer. It is the only one you are getting." His voice softened. "You vanished, Elena. Do you know what that did to me?" A bitter laugh escaped before I could stop it. "I am sure you found ways to fill the silence." He turned toward me then, his gaze cutting through the dark. "You think this life gave me peace?" I hesitated. "It gave you power. It gave me nothing I wanted," he said. "Except this moment." I felt the words sink into me, heavy and dangerous. I looked away quickly. "Do not say things like that." "Why not?" "Because I remember what happened the last time you did." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The city lights flickered across his face, revealing a man both familiar and foreign. The boy who once held my hand behind the old church, and the man who now commanded silence with a single glance. He leaned back, his tone quiet but firm. "You left because of what I was becoming." I swallowed hard. "I left because I did not want to become part of it. And yet here you are. In my car." "That was not a choice," I said sharply. His jaw tightened. "You could have walked." His tone was calm. "Get followed by beneath it was something else. You said it yourself. A warning. It is not safe. Or desperation." He studied me for a long moment. I could not tell which scared me more. Said, almost regretfully, "You changed," I said. "You still fight me even his head, when I am trying to protect studying me like a puzzle. I do not need your protection, how to solve. I need distance." "So did you?" "No," he turned his gaze back to the road. "You became someone else. Distance does not change what you are to me." The words hung between us like static. I wanted to ask what kind of world forces neither someone to bury who they used to be. I closed my eyes, already trying to calm the ache in my chest. The same world that made me outside, rain began to fall. The same world that turned him into this. Then steady, a man with the kind of quiet confidence down the glass. Only danger wears. The rhythm filled the silence. "I came to make sure you are safe." And for a few fleeting seconds, I almost laughed. I remembered what it felt like to be 17 again. His jaw tightened, sitting beside him, his voice stayed laughing under a storm. From the people who might notice you could survive anything. Something in the way he said it made the air colder. The movement subtle. I took a step almost back, gentle. "I do not need your protection." The warm air brushed against my hand. He gave a short, humorless chuckle. And I hated how easily my body relaxed. That is not a choice around him. The words, "Do you ever think about that night?" "Do not talk to me like I am one of your men." My breath caught. "You are not." "Which one?" "That is why I am here. When you said you would never forgive me." Somewhere outside, I stared at the rain outside. An engine revved. I meant cut off. He smiled faintly. The sound made him glance toward the window. "And yet you are here." Not I turned to face him, calculation, meeting his gaze head on. Then his eyes came back to me. "Being here does not steady and unreadable." "No, I will take you home," quietly, he said. "But it means you still care." It is not safe. The silence that followed felt dangerous. It never was. The kind that pulls you in. Just my name, heartbeat at a time. But the way he said it froze me. I could feel the pull of him, and concern, the gravity woven together in a tone that felt far too familiar. Even now, when I knew better, I said no. He still remembered how safe his arms once felt. A trace of frustration slipping even if they had always been surrounded by danger. You always mistake protection for control. The car slowed, and you always mistake control for love. We were near my apartment. The silence that followed was unbearable. That sagged under the weight of years and rain. He really looked. He stopped at the curb, faintest flicker of something human. Something the low hum filled the space between us. Maybe the boy I once knew was still in there. I reached for the door handle, needing to break free from whatever spell this ride had cast. "I cannot let you walk home alone." Before I could open it, his voice stopped. "Not tonight. Elena." Maybe it was the exhaustion. I froze, my hand still on the handle. Maybe it was the way he said "not tonight." He looked at me, his eyes softer now, almost pleading. Whatever it was, I stopped fighting. This city still belongs to me. I grabbed my bag. I turned slightly, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. And what does that have to do with me? He held the door open as I stepped outside. the cold
because
night
whether
air
you like
biting
it or
at my
not,
skin.
you are still
The black
part of
car
it.
waited at the curb.
The words sank
sleek,
into me like a
tinted,
warning,
expensive,
or maybe a promise.
A man stood near the
I
driver's
stepped out
side,
into the rain, nodding
the
at
cold
Luca
instantly
before
biting
stepping
my
back
skin.
into the shadows.
The car's headlights
Every
washed
instinct
over me
screamed at
as
me
I
to
walked
turn
toward the
around,
cracked
to
doorway
run.
of my building.
But my legs
When I
moved
turned
on their
back,
own.
he was still there.
As I reached
watching.
for the car door,
Then
I caught a
slowly,
glimpse of
the
his
car
reflection
pulled away,
in the window,
its red
calm,
taillights disappearing into the wet
untouchable.
darkness.
Then something red
But his
caught
words
my eye.
stayed. At
Echoing
first,
with
I thought
every
it was a
step I
trick
took.
of the streetlight.
This city still
But when he
belongs
adjusted
to me,
his cufflink,
and you are
the
part
smear
of it.
became clear.
And deep down,
a dark
I knew he was
stain,
right.
fresh and wet.
Some ghosts
hidden
never let
beneath
you
the
go.
silver glint.
They just wait
Blood.
for the right night to
I
find you
froze,
again.
my hand hovering
Sleep
just
was
above
never
the
kind to
handle.
me, but
He
that
noticed
night
my
it was
stare,
cruel.
then followed
Every
my gaze
time I
down to
closed
his
my
wrist.
eyes, the past
For the
bled
briefest
into the
second,
present.
his expression
Flashes
faltered,
of laughter under
a flicker
fireworks,
of something dangerous,
his hand
secret.
brushing mine by the
Elena,
river.
he said
The heat of a
softly,
promise
like he was
whispered
trying to
against
pull
my
me
skin.
back into his gravity.
Then always the sound
but
of
I could not
sirens.
move.
The
The
memory
man
of
who
running.
once swore to protect
I woke up
me was
gasping,
standing there,
the sheets
calm as
tangled
the
around
night,
me like chains.
with someone else's blood
My
on
small
his
apartment
sleeve.
was still half
And in that
dark.
moment, the glow of
I
the
realized
street
I
lamp
was not
leaking
just
through the
stepping into
blinds.
his car,
Slicing the
I was
room
stepping
into
back
bars
into a
of amber
world I
and
had
shadow.
barely escaped alive.
I lay there for a moment,
the car door
trying to
closed
convince
with a
myself
soft
that
thud,
I was safe,
sealing me
that he
inside
was
a
gone,
silence that felt
the
heavier
ghosts
than
of
the
who we
night.
used to be could
The
not
city
reach me
stretched
here.
ahead, but
Its
the quiet
lights
had
blurring
blurring
into
into
streaks
streaks
of
like
gold
the city
and
was
blue
holding
through
its
the
breath.
tinted glass.
I got up. I
made
sat
coffee
rigid
I
in the
did not
back seat
need,
and
the
stood
faint
by
hum
the
of the
window,
engine mixing
staring
with
at
the
the
rhythm
rain
of my
slick street
heartbeat.
below. Luca
Every
was only
car
a
that
few
passed,
inches away. Every sound
felt
from the
like an
alley
entire
made my pulse
lifetime
jump.
separated us.
It was ridiculous.
He had taken
I told
off his
myself.
jacket and tossed
Luca
it
was
beside
from
him.
another world. The white of his
He had
shirt
set his
catching
piece,
the glow
and I
of
had
passing
mine.
streetlights.
Whatever he wanted,
the blood on his
it ended the
cufflink was
moment
gone.
that car drove away.
Or maybe it had just
Then I saw
disappeared
it,
into the
a
darkness.
slip of white paper.
Either way,
wedged under
I
my
could not
door.
stop thinking about
For a
it.
long second,
I wanted to
just
ask.
stared.
I wanted to
throat
know whose
tightened
blood
as I
it crossed
was,
the floor,
and why it
the
never
paper
seemed
was
to
damp
bother
from the
him.
rain that had
But the
crept
words
in
caught
through the
somewhere
crack.
between my throat
My hands
and my
trembled
pride.
as I unfolded
He
it.
broke the silence.
The message
first.
was short. You are still
Sharp.
quiet when you are
shouldn't
scared.
have come back, he said softly.
No signature.
Not looking at me.
No mark. I am not scared.
Just those
I lied.
words. Written
He gave
in black
a small,
ink
knowing
that had
smile.
bled slightly into
You
the
always
paper,
were a terrible
like
liar.
it had been left there for
The city
hours.
rolled by outside.
My knees went weak.
The same streets
I
we
sank
once
onto the
walked when
floor,
we were nothing
the
but
note still
reckless
in my
kids
hands.
with empty pockets.
Every part
and
of me
wild
wanted to
dreams.
deny what I already
But now
knew,
everything looked smaller,
that this was
harder,
not random.
colder. That
Where did
somehow
you go?
I had been
He
found
asked suddenly.
By morning,
All these
the rain
years,
had stopped.
I kept
but the
my
chill
eyes on the
remained.
window.
I
Away.
walked to work in
He
silence,
waited,
as
the
if
note
expecting
burning in my
more.
pocket.
But when I stayed
Each
quiet,
step
he
heavier
said,
than the last.
"That is not an answer.
The diner looked the same
It is
as
the
always.
only one you are getting."
Dull lights,
His
tired
voice
faces,
softened.
coffee brewing.
You vanished, Elena.
But I could not shake the
you know what
feeling
that did to
something
me?
was watching from
A
the
bitter
shadows.
laugh escaped before
was
I
there.
could stop it. Luca sat
I am
in
sure
the
you
same
found
booth
ways
as
to fill the
before,
silence.
the one by the corner
He
window.
turned toward me then.
A newspaper
his
lay
gaze
in
cutting
front of
through
him,
the dark.
untouched. Do you think this life
He looked
gave
like
me
he had been
peace?
waiting for me.
I hesitated.
I froze.
It gave you
He
power.
raised his gaze slowly.
It gave me nothing I
and
wanted.
the moment our
he
eyes
said.
met,
Except
felt
this
that
moment,
same quiet pull
I
I
felt
had
the
spent
words
years
sink into
trying
me,
to escape.
heavy and dangerous.
You look tired.
I looked
he said,
away
voice
quickly.
calm, too calm.
Do not say things
I worked
like
late.
that, I lied.
Why not?
He studied me
Because
for a
I
moment.
remember what happened the
No,
last time
it is
you
something
did.
else. For a
I
moment,
turned to grab
neither
a
of
coffee
us
pot,
spoke.
desperate
The city
for
lights
distraction.
flickered across his
You
face,
should not be here,
revealing a man
He
both
leaned back,
familiar and
unbothered.
foreign. And yet I
The
am.
boy who once held my
I set the
hand
cup
behind
down
the old
harder than I
church,
meant to.
and the man
What do
who
you
now
want, Luca?
commanded silence.
His gaze
with a single
sharpened.
glance.
You tell me.
He leaned back.
I frowned.
his tone quiet but
What does that
firm.
mean? You left
He reached
because
into
of what
his
I was
jacket
becoming
and slid something
I swallowed
across
hard.
the table.
I left
A
because I
folded
did
piece
not
of
want to
paper.
become part of it.
My blood ran cold
and yet here you
before
are,
I even touched it.
in my car. That was not a choice, I said sharply. His jaw tightened. You could have walked. It was the note. My voice broke. How did you? You found this last night, he interrupted softly. Outside your door. The sound of the diner faded around us. No clinking dishes, no murmuring voices, just his words echoing in the space between us. You knew, I whispered. He nodded once. Of course I knew. Something inside me snapped. You have been watching me? He did not flinch. I have been protecting you. By spying on me? I hissed, my voice rising before I could stop it. A few customers turned to look, but Luca's calm never wavered. If I had not been, you would be dead by now, he said flatly. The words landed like a slap. Do you even hear yourself? You are part of the reason I had to leave. And yet, you are still breathing.
breathing because of me, he replied, leaning forward. His voice dropped to a whisper. Do you think this note is just a threat? It is a message. Someone knows who you are, Elena. Someone who remembers what you used to mean to me. The way he said used to made my heart twist painfully. I wanted to hate him. Truly, I did. But standing there, with that note between us, I could not tell whether I was angry or terrified or something worse. Who sent it? I asked. If I knew that, they would already be gone. His words chilled me, not just because of what they meant, but because of how easily he said them. That calm, effortless tone. The one he used when talking about life and death like they were just business. I looked away, my voice shaking.
You think violence solves everything. He smiled faintly, though there was no humor in it. It solves some things faster. The silence that followed was suffocating. My mind was a blur of fear and memory. The night we ran, the gunshot in the alley, the promise he made as we hid under the old bridge. If anyone ever comes for you, they go through me first. And now, years later, he was keeping that promise in the only way he knew how, by controlling everything around me. He stood up, buttoning his jacket. I will handle it. No, I said quickly. Stay away from my life, Luca. He looked at me then, really looked, the softness gone, replaced by something colder. You still do not understand. Your life is not separate from mine. It never was. I felt the air leave my chest. You cannot own me. He stepped closer, lowering his voice until only I could hear. I do not need to own you, Elena. I just need to make sure no one else takes what is mine. The words cut deeper than I wanted to admit. Before I could reply, he walked past me, the scent of his cologne lingering like smoke. When I turned around, he was gone. But the note was still on the table, its edges curling slightly from where his fingers had held it. I reached out, tracing the words again. You shouldn't have come back. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, and I felt something shift deep inside me. A memory, a warning, a truth I had tried too long to forget. Whatever storm was coming, it was not just about the past anymore. And as much as I wanted to believe I was free, Luca's words kept echoing in my head, low and haunting. I have been watching you. The worst part was not the fear. It was knowing that part of me felt safer because of it. The next morning, the diner felt different, heavier somehow, as if the air itself had been warned. The rain had stopped, but the streets outside still glistened like a wound that refused to close. I tried to convince myself it was just exhaustion, that last night had been a dream. But when I stepped behind the counter, I could feel eyes on me, the kind that didn't blink. Every instinct told me to run, but I had nowhere left to go. I tied my apron with shaking hands, pretending not to notice the black sedan parked across the street. Its tinted windows reflected the neon sign like a dark mirror. I told myself it was nothing, just another car in a city full of shadows. But when the door chimed, I knew I was wrong. 2 men walked in. Not regulars. They were too still, too aware. One wore a gray suit that didn't quite fit, the other a leather jacket that looked older than his conscience. They scanned the diner the way hunters scan a clearing, slow, patient, calculating. Morning, I said, forcing a smile that did not reach my eyes. Table for 2? The one in gray smiled back. It was the kind of smile that could split into violence at any second. Yeah, window's fine. I led them to a booth near the front, the same spot Luca had sat in days before. As I poured their coffee, I could feel their gaze tracing every movement. You're new here, the man in leather said. I shook my head lightly. Been here a while. Strange, he murmured, stirring his coffee though he had not added sugar. I come by often. Never saw you before. I kept my tone steady. Maybe I was working nights. He looked up then, and his smile disappeared. Maybe. The waitress beside me, Carrie, a kind girl with too much curiosity for her own good, leaned over and whispered, You know those guys? I shook my head. No. She frowned. They look like trouble. Trouble. That word had followed me for years. It had worn Luca's face, whispered his name in the dark. Now it was sitting in front of me, sipping coffee from chipped mugs. The one in gray took a slow sip and said, We're looking for someone. My throat tightened. This is a diner, not a detective's office. He chuckled. Maybe. But sometimes the city hides its ghosts in plain sight. I forced a laugh. You should try the pancakes. Best thing we serve. He ignored that. You work here long? The question was casual, but his tone wasn't. I felt the hair rise on my arms. A few months, I said carefully. Right, he replied. And before that, I met his eyes then, steady, cold, blue like winter glass. Why do you care? He leaned forward, elbows on the table. Because my boss is interested in a woman who used to know Luca Moretti. The name hit me like a stone to the chest. For a heartbeat, I forgot how to breathe. I could feel Carrie's eyes flick toward me. I forced my hands to stay still. Never heard of him, I said. The man in leather laughed quietly. See, that's funny. Because he was seen right here, in this very diner, a few nights ago. And the waitress on shift looked a lot like you. My pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. We get a lot of customers. He smiled faintly. I bet you do. They stayed for another 10 minutes, pretending to eat. Every second felt like an hour. I tried to act normal,
refilled cups, wiped counters, smiled at strangers. But my heart was running a marathon behind my ribs. When they finally stood to leave, the one in gray reached into his coat. I froze, my breath locking in my throat. But instead of a gun, he pulled out a bill and placed it on the table. "Keep the change," he said. Then he leaned closer, voice low, calm, deliberate. "Tell him we stopped by." My hands clenched around the tray. "I do not know who you mean." His lips curved slightly. "Sure you do." They walked out without another glance. The bell above the door jingled like nothing had happened. But everything had. Carrie came over, eyes wide. "Who were they?" I shook my head, whispering, "No one you ever want to meet." The rest of my shift passed in fragments. I spilled coffee twice. My manager scolded me once. Every sound made me flinch. And still, I felt his presence, not Luca's, but theirs. Like they had left a piece of themselves behind in that booth, waiting for me to sit down. As the diner emptied, I grabbed my coat, ready to run straight home and lock every door I owned. But when I stepped outside, the same black sedan was still parked across the street. Its engine idled softly, a patient growl beneath the rain. Someone rolled down the window. The man in gray leaned out, the streetlight catching the edge of his face. "You know," he called quietly, "people talk about Luca Moretti like he's a ghost." I said nothing. He tilted his head, voice dropping to a whisper that carried across the empty street. "He killed your father's partner, didn't he?" My stomach turned to ice. Before I could answer, before I could even breathe, the window rolled up, and the car drove away into the dark, leaving only the echo of that question behind. And for the first time in years, I realized something far worse than fear. Luca's world was not pulling me back. It had never let me go. I found him where I knew he'd be, in the old garage behind his club, sleeves rolled up, smoke curling from a half-burnt cigarette as sparks flared from the workbench. Luca Moretti never really belonged to the light. Even the fire obeyed him in silence. I had rehearsed this moment 100 times. The words, the fury, the way I would stand tall and unafraid when I finally demanded the truth. But the second I saw him, every thought dissolved. My chest tightened, my pulse betrayed me. He didn't look surprised. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low, gravel over smoke. I stepped closer. "You killed him." The wrench in his hand froze midair. I felt the world narrow, the hum of the lamp, the faint creak of metal, the unbearable space between us. "My father's partner," I said, forcing the words out. "You killed him." He turned slowly, eyes unreadable, jaw set. For a long time, he didn't answer. Then he sighed, setting the wrench down with care, like the truth itself was fragile. "Who told you? Does it matter?" My voice broke. "Is it true?" He looked at me, and something in his gaze shifted. Regret, maybe, or defiance wrapped in love. "Yes." The word hit like glass shattering inside me. I staggered back, hand covering my mouth. You promised me, Luca. You said you had nothing to do with his death." "I lied," he said quietly. "Because you needed me to." "I needed you?" I laughed bitterly. "No, Luca. I needed to believe my life wasn't built on blood. That the man I loved wasn't a murderer." He stepped forward, slow and deliberate, as if afraid I might vanish. "He wasn't innocent. You know that. That doesn't make it right. I didn't do it to be right." His voice rose, echoing through the garage. "I did it because he destroyed your family. He sold your father out. Put a price on his head. He deserved what came for him." Tears blurred my vision. "You think that makes it okay? That killing him fixes what he did?" "No," he ran a hand through his hair, anger burning under his skin. "It doesn't fix anything. But it made sure no one else could hurt you again." I shook my head. "You don't get to decide that. You don't get to play God just because you loved me." He stepped closer, eyes fierce, voice breaking. "I didn't do it just because I loved you. I did it for you." The room went still. "For me," I whispered. His jaw clenched. "Every sin, every bullet, every drop of blood on my hands, all of it was for you." Something inside me cracked open, rage, grief, longing, all tangled in one unbearable ache. "For me," I repeated, my voice trembling. "You think that's love? You think dragging my father's ghost back into this world was for me?" He reached for me, and I stepped back. "Do you know what it feels like to wake up every day wondering if the man you love is the same man who destroyed your family?" "Yes," he said. The word came out like a confession. "Because I wonder the same thing." I froze. He took a slow breath. "You think I don't see it? Every time you look at me, you're trying to decide if I'm your salvation or your curse. But here's the truth, I'm both. The silence between us was suffocating. The rain outside had started again, soft against the tin roof, like the world was trying to wash us clean. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream until the walls cracked. But instead, all I could whisper was, "You took away my choice, Luca. You stole the only thing I had left, the right to walk away without guilt." His voice softened, breaking. "I couldn't lose you again. You already did." I turned toward the door, my heartbeat loud in my ears. "Wait." His hand caught my wrist, warm, strong, desperate. For a moment, I saw the boy I once loved, the one who swore he'd build me a world where no one could hurt me again. But that world had burned to ashes in his hands. "Let me explain," he said. "There's nothing left to explain. You think I wanted this?" His voice rose again, ragged. "You think I don't wake up every night seeing his face?" Hearing his last words, I hesitated. What did he say? He met my eyes, and in that moment I saw it all. The guilt, the exhaustion, the man trying to carry both love and damnation in the same heart. "He said your father was right about me," Luca whispered. "That I'd ruin you." The world tilted. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I pulled my hand free, every muscle trembling. He was right. I left before he could speak again, stepping into the rain. The city blurring around me like a memory I didn't want to remember. Behind me, I could still hear his voice echoing through the open door, low and broken, a confession to no one. "I did it for you," he said again. "Every sin, every bullet, all for you." And this time I believed him. That was what made it hurt the most. I told myself I would never go back. Not to that garage. Not to him. Not to the past that refused to die. But the heart is a traitor. It whispers when it should scream. And that night, when the rain returned and the city drowned in its own sins, I found myself standing outside his door again. Soaked, shaking, furious at everything, especially myself. Luca opened it before I could knock. He didn't look surprised. Maybe he knew I'd come. Maybe he always knew. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly. I laughed under my breath, the sound sharp, bitter. "You keep saying that. Maybe stop leaving doors open for me." He stepped aside, wordless, and I walked past him. The room smelled of smoke and whiskey, the same scent that used to make me feel safe once, before it became a warning. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched like a wound that refused to close. Finally, I said, "I can't hate you the way I should." He froze, the tiniest flicker in his eyes, but I saw it. "I've tried," I continued, my voice trembling. "God, I've tried to see you as a monster. To believe you're just another man who destroys everything he touches. But every time I do, I remember the boy who pulled me out of the river. The one who said love could save anyone, even us." He turned toward me, his jaw tight, eyes darker than I'd ever seen. "That boy's gone." I took a step closer. "Maybe. But I still see him." He shook his head, almost smiling, but it wasn't joy. "You shouldn't." "Then stop looking at me like that," I whispered. He looked down, hands gripping the edge of the table. "Like what?" "Like you still love me." Silence. Then a low exhale, the sound of surrender. "Because I do," he said simply. "And it's killing me." Something inside me cracked, a soundless, invisible fracture. I wanted to slap him, to scream, to break something just to match the chaos he'd built inside me. But instead, I whispered, "You don't get to say that. Not after everything you've done." He nodded slowly, eyes never leaving mine. "You're right, but it doesn't make it less true." The air between us was heavy, the kind that hums right before lightning strikes. I could feel my pulse in my throat, my wrists everywhere. I tried to step back, but he moved first, closing the distance, his breath warm against my temple. "You came back," he murmured. "I shouldn't have. But you did." I swallowed hard. "Because I wanted answers." He leaned closer, voice breaking into a whisper. "And did you find them?" I met his eyes, tired, beautiful, damned. "No," I said quietly. "Just more questions." His hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed a strand of wet hair from my cheek. The touch burned, not from heat, but from memory. Every nerve in my body screamed for distance, yet I didn't move. "I hate you," I said, breathless. He smiled faintly. "I know." My heart pounded. "Then why are you smiling?" "Because you said it like a lie." The world fell silent. The rain softened outside, as if even the storm was holding its breath. He stepped closer until there was nothing left between us but the truth, raw, ugly, alive. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My heart was too loud, my body too honest. He leaned in, slow enough for me to run, but I didn't. His hand slid behind my neck, and his lips brushed mine. Tentative at first, then desperate, hungry, full of every word we'd never said. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't right. But it was real. When he pulled away, my breath trembled against his. "This is a mistake," I whispered. He nodded. "Probably. Then why does it feel like coming home?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. His forehead rested against mine, eyes closed, as if we were two ghosts pretending to be human again. Somewhere inside me, the line I'd drawn between love and hate blurred until I couldn't tell which side I was standing on anymore. I should have walked away. But instead, I kissed him back. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I stopped running. I woke up to the sound of my own heartbeat. The city outside was still, too still, like the calm before something breaks. Luca's jacket was draped over my shoulders, his scent woven into the fabric, smoke, leather, and something darker I could never name. I sat on the couch, staring at the doorway where he had left hours ago, promising to take care of things. That was Luca's way of saying someone was going to bleed. The night before had been a fever dream. Heat and danger bound so tightly I could barely tell them apart. I told myself it was a mistake. That one kiss did not erase the truth. But when he whispered my name like a vow, part of me believed we could survive the fire we started. Now, in the pale light of dawn, reality returned like a blade pressing against my throat. Loving him meant being hunted. It meant every shadow outside my window could hold a gun. When the knock came, I froze. It was not Luca. It was Tony, one of the diner's busboys, face pale, hands shaking. "There were men," he stammered. "Outside the alley last night. They were asking about you." My blood ran cold. "What did they want?" He hesitated, eyes darting to the floor. "They said you were Luca Romano's weakness." The words hit harder than any slap. Weakness. That was how they saw me, a way to hurt him. And deep down, I knew they were right. By the time Luca returned that afternoon, my hands were still trembling. He walked in without a word, his presence filling the room like a storm cloud. He looked different, colder, sharper. There was a smear of blood on his sleeve, and his jaw was tight with rage. "Who came here?" he demanded. I swallowed. "You already know, don't you?" He exhaled through his nose, pacing. "They crossed a line." "Which line, Luca?" My voice rose. "The one where people get killed because they look at you wrong, or the one where I stop pretending this is normal?" He stopped in front of me, eyes burning. "You are not just anyone. You are mine. That means you are under my protection." I laughed bitterly. "Protection? You mean prison?" He stepped closer, voice dropping low. "Do you think I wanted this? Any of it? The blood, the war, the lies? I built this world to survive it, and now it wants to take you from me." Something inside me softened and broke all at once. "Luca," I whispered, "you cannot save me with the same hands that destroy everything else." He stared at me for a long time, then reached into his coat pocket. When he pulled his hand out, it was holding a small silver chain, a cross, tarnished with age. "Do you remember this?" he asked. I did. It was mine. I had given it to him the night before I disappeared 6 years ago. I thought it was lost forever. "I kept it," he said quietly. "Every time I pulled a trigger, every time I buried another piece of who I was, I looked at this and remembered you." I could not speak. The tears came before I could stop them. He stepped closer, lifting the chain and slipping it back around my neck. His fingers brushed my skin, and the air seemed to hum between us. "Promise me something," he whispered. "What?" "If this war touches you, if they ever come for you, you run. Do not wait for me. Do not look back." I shook my head. "I will not leave you again." He smiled faintly, a sad kind of smile. "Then it will kill you, just like it is killing me." For a moment, the world narrowed to just us, two souls standing on the edge of something neither could escape. His hand cupped my face, thumb tracing the tear that slipped down my cheek. "I love you," I breathed. "God help me, I still love you." He closed his eyes like the words hurt. "Then stay inside tonight," he said. "Promise me." I nodded, even though I knew promises meant nothing in our world. He left again, his shadow disappearing down the hall. I stood by the window, clutching the cross, my reflection pale against the glass. The city lights blurred through the tears I did not realize were falling. Then I heard it, a sound that split the silence in half. A low roar. A flash of orange. The street outside erupted in fire. The blast threw me to the floor, glass shattering around me as heat surged through the room. My body shook, ears ringing, smoke filling my lungs. I crawled toward the window, heart pounding, and saw the twisted wreck of a car burning below. The same car Luca had parked there less than an hour ago. The night screamed with sirens and chaos, and in that chaos, one thought tore through me like shrapnel. Someone had just declared war. Flames painted the sky in shades of ruin. The night was no longer quiet. It screamed with sirens, echoing gunfire, and the sound of my own heartbeat pounding against my ribs. The explosion had torn through the street like vengeance itself, and for one brief, paralyzing moment, I thought Luca was inside that car. I stumbled through the smoke, calling his name, my voice breaking. Then a strong arm caught me from behind and pulled me into the alley. "Are you out of your mind?" Luca's voice rough, breathless, alive. He was covered in soot, a cut bleeding near his temple. I clutched his jacket, the relief flooding through me so violently it hurt. "I thought you were dead." He wiped the blood from his face. "Not tonight." The chaos around us didn't stop. Men shouted across the street, black SUVs speeding past, gunfire cracking like thunder. Luca grabbed my hand. "We need to move. Now." He dragged me through a maze of backstreets, his grip firm, unrelenting. Every corner seemed alive with danger. My lungs burned from running, my mind spinning with the realization that I had stepped back into his world. And there was no way out now. We reached an old warehouse near the docks. Inside, the air smelled of oil and metal. Luca pushed the heavy door shut and leaned against it, chest rising and falling. "They hit 2 of my places," he said. "My driver's dead. Marco's missing." I swallowed hard. "Who did this?" He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw fear flicker behind his eyes. "Vincenzo Moretti. He's making a move." I had heard that name before, whispered in the diner when customers spoke about old debts and new corpses. "What does he want?" I asked. Luca exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Me. My city. Everything I built. But he'll start with what he knows can break me first." His gaze locked onto mine. "You." My throat went dry. "You should have let me go when you had the chance." He stepped closer, voice low and raw. "You think I can do that now? After everything? They already came for you. I am not giving them another chance." I wanted to scream, to tell him that love should not feel like being hunted. But the truth was, I needed him just as much as he needed me. Somewhere between fear and fire, I had fallen again. We sat in silence for a while, the world outside burning itself to pieces. Luca cleaned the cut on his face with a torn piece of cloth, his hands trembling only slightly. There was something in that tremor, exhaustion, maybe guilt. He looked up suddenly. "You remember that summer on the pier?" The question took me off guard. "Of course I do. You made me promise never to lie to you again." I nodded. "And you broke that promise." "Yes," he said quietly. "But I never broke the one that mattered." "What was that?" "That I would always find my way back to you." My breath caught. For a moment, the war outside faded, and all I could see was the boy he used to be, the one who believed in forever. Then headlights flashed through the window, snapping us back to reality. Luca's hand went to his gun instantly. "They found us," he whispered. He pulled me toward the back exit, leading me through a narrow hallway cluttered with crates and broken machinery. We ducked behind a steel door as voices echoed nearby. The tension was unbearable. Every step, every breath could give us away. When the noise faded, I finally looked at him, really looked. His shirt was torn, streaked with blood that wasn't all his. He caught me staring and said, almost teasing, "You always had a way of finding me at my worst." "Maybe that's the only version you ever let anyone see," I said softly. He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Maybe." He turned away, pulling something from his pocket, his wallet, worn and half-burned. He slipped it into his coat, but as he did, something fell out. A small photograph. I bent to pick it up before he could stop me. It was me, older, my hair shorter, standing outside the diner, taken from a distance. I looked up slowly, heart thudding. "When was this taken?" He hesitated. "A year ago." I could barely breathe. "You were watching me. All this time." His voice was quiet, almost broken. I never stopped. The photograph trembled in my hands as the walls outside echoed with the roar of engines. Somewhere deep in the city, another explosion shook the night. Luca grabbed my arm, eyes dark and urgent. "This is just the beginning." But my mind was still fixed on the photo, proof that he had never really let me go. Outside, the fire spread. Inside, something even more dangerous was burning. The storm outside had slowed to a distant hum, but inside the old warehouse, silence hung like smoke, heavy, suffocating, full of things neither of us wanted to say. The photograph still rested in my hand, its edges smudged with ash and memory. I stared at it as if it could explain everything, as if the girl in that picture could tell me why the man in front of me had turned his soul to stone just to keep his promise. Luca sat across from me on an overturned crate, elbows on his knees, head bowed. For once, he looked tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix, but the kind that came from years of carrying ghosts. The warehouse lights flickered, catching the sharp lines of his face. He looked nothing like the boy I had once loved, and yet, he looked exactly like him. "How long?" I asked finally. My voice barely rose above a whisper. He did not look up. "Since the night you vanished." "You looked for me all this time?" His jaw clenched. I did not stop. I searched every corner of this city, every rumor, every face that even remotely looked like you. When I could not find you, I convinced myself you were gone. But even then, I could not stop looking. The words hit me harder than any confession could. I wanted to hate him for it, but part of me, the small, broken part that still ached for him, felt seen in a way no one else had ever made me feel. "Why?" I finally asked. "You had everything. Power, money, a name people feared. Why keep chasing something that was already gone?" He lifted his eyes then, and the pain there was unbearable. "Because everything I built was for you. Every deal, every fight, every life I took. I told myself it was all to make the city safe enough for you to come back to. I thought if I could control it, I could protect you from it." I felt something inside me crack. "You turned into the very thing you wanted to protect me from." He did not deny it. He only nodded, a faint, broken smile touching his lips. "Maybe that is what love does to people like me. It destroys the good to protect the one thing that made us believe we were good at all." I wanted to cry, to scream, to undo the years between us, but all I could do was whisper. "You killed him, Luca. The man who ruined my family." "Yes." His eyes did not flinch. "I did. Why did you not tell me then?" "Because you would have hated me." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I already did." He let out a breath, the sound almost a laugh. "And yet you are still here." The truth of it stung. I could have walked away 1,000 times, but I did not. Maybe love is not about reason. Maybe it is about the chains we choose to keep because they remind us who we were when we still believed in something pure. He stood and crossed the floor slowly, his boots echoing against the concrete. When he stopped in front of me, he reached out and brushed his fingers against my cheek. His touch was soft, almost reverent. "I never stopped seeing you. Even when you were gone, I saw you in every night sky, every fire that burned too bright." Tears welled in my eyes, hot and unrelenting. "You are talking like a man who knows he will not survive this." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I will not. But if I have to fall, I want to fall knowing you are free." I grabbed his wrist, shaking my head. "No, you do not get to decide that for me anymore. If you go down, I go down too." He looked startled, then something soft, almost human, flickered in his eyes. "You would really do that? After everything, I do not know how to be anywhere you are not," I said quietly. He stepped closer, resting his forehead against mine. "Then we leave," he whispered. "Tonight, before dawn. There is a boat waiting at the South Pier. We disappear for good this time." My breath caught. "You mean it?" He nodded. "One last chance, Elena. One last time to choose something that does not end in blood." For a long moment, I just stood there, feeling the weight of his words settle into me like a heartbeat. The idea of running away, of leaving behind the ashes of everything that had defined us, felt impossible, and yet it was the first thing that had felt alive in years. Outside, thunder rolled again, echoing through the rafters. I looked down at the photo still clutched in my hand and whispered, "If we go, we do not come back." He looked at me with something close to peace. "Then we do not come back." I felt the air shift, fragile, sacred. The world holding its breath as if daring us to believe in something other than pain. And for the first time since that night in the diner, I let myself hope. But deep down, I knew the city was not done with us yet. Because promises made in blood never fade quietly, they demand payment. And as Luca pulled me into his arms, whispering that tomorrow we would be free, a shadow moved outside the window. Someone was still watching. The night smelled like rain and gasoline. The kind of night that promised change, or ruin. We drove with the windows down, wind slicing through the silence between us. Luca's hand rested on the gearshift, mine just inches away. Neither of us spoke, but the unspoken was louder than thunder. For the first time in years, I believed we could actually make it out, alive, unchained, unseen. The city lights behind us faded into a smear of gold and smoke. Ahead, the bridge stretched like a promise, leading us toward the dark horizon where the sea waited. I could almost feel it, freedom. The kind that did not ask for permission or forgiveness. He looked over at me, his profile carved by the glow of passing streetlights. "You are quiet," he said softly. "I am trying to remember this," I whispered. "The way it feels to finally leave." He smiled faintly, one of those rare, unguarded smiles that still made my heart stumble. "Then remember it well. Because after tonight, we are ghosts." His words hung between us, heavy and beautiful. I wanted to believe that was true, that we could vanish into another life and leave the wreckage behind. But fate, I had learned, never lets people like us go quietly. We were halfway across the bridge when I noticed the headlights behind us. Too steady, too close. I felt my pulse quicken. "Luca." He glanced into the rearview mirror, his smile fading. "I see them." The car behind us accelerated. Another appeared ahead, blocking the far end of the bridge. My stomach dropped. "It is them, isn't it?" I whispered. His jaw tightened. "Worse. It is mine." Before I could ask what he meant, gunfire shattered the night. Glass exploded around us. Luca swerved, the tires screeching against the wet pavement. My scream was lost in the chaos as bullets tore through metal and air. He grabbed my hand, pulling me down beneath the dashboard. "Stay down," he shouted, voice hoarse with fury. The car spun, slammed against the railing, and skidded to a stop. Steam hissed from the hood. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance, too far to matter. I turned to him, panic rising in my throat. "How did they find us?" "You said." "I said we could try," he cut in, eyes dark, breathing hard. "But someone sold us out." Another volley of bullets hit the door. He reached for the glove compartment, pulled out his gun, and handed it to me. "You remember how to use it?" My fingers shook as I nodded. "Do not you dare die on me." He almost smiled, that same reckless tenderness that had drawn me in years ago. "Then stay behind me, and maybe I won't." He kicked open the door and stepped out into the rain, firing at the approaching cars. The air smelled of burnt metal and salt. I followed him, crouching behind the twisted wreck. Every flash of muzzle fire illuminated his silhouette, the man who once owned the city now fighting just to buy us one last breath. "Luca, we can run," I shouted over the gunfire. "We can still make it." He turned to me, his eyes burning with something fierce and final. "You go," he said. "Get to the pier. Take the boat." "No," I screamed. "I am not leaving you." He opened his mouth to reply, and then I saw it. The movement. The flash. The man on the bridge aiming straight for me. I did not even have time to react before Luca moved. One heartbeat. One shot. One impossible moment. And he was in front of me, his body jerking as the bullet tore through him. "Luca!" I caught him before he hit the ground, my hands already slick with blood. His eyes found mine, and for a second there was peace there, as if he had been waiting for this all along. He tried to speak, but the words broke apart in the rain. I leaned closer, trembling. "Do not talk. Just stay with me. Please stay." He smiled faintly, blood on his lips. "Told you. I'd keep you safe." Then his hand slipped from mine. The bridge fell silent except for the rain, falling harder now, washing his blood into the river below. I pressed my forehead against his chest, sobbing, whispering his name over and over. Like if I said it enough, I could call him back. But the only answer was the sound of sirens drawing closer. The city was reclaiming us, just like it always did. And as I looked down at the man who had ruined and saved me in equal measure, I realized something cruelly poetic. He had finally kept his promise. A promise made in blood. The world stopped breathing when he did. The rain slowed, as if even the sky refused to move. I could not tell if it was minutes or hours that passed while I held him, my hands trembling, my heart refusing to believe the weight in my arms was already gone. His blood was still warm on my palms. His face, pale, beautiful, calm, looked almost like sleep. The kind of sleep I used to dream he might find someday, when all the ghosts stopped chasing him. "Luca," I whispered. The name broke like glass in my throat. "Please. You promised we'd make it out." The sirens were closer now, red and blue lights flickering in the fog. I should have run. I should have saved myself. But my body would not listen. I lifted his head into my lap, brushing wet hair from his forehead. His eyelids fluttered once. For a heartbeat, I thought I had imagined it, until he exhaled, shallow, ragged. "Do not cry," he murmured, barely audible. My breath caught. "You're going to be fine.
Just hold on, okay? The police are coming. We'll get you to a hospital." He gave a faint, broken laugh, the kind that carried both love and surrender. "You still believe in saving things that can't be saved." "Don't say that," I begged, my voice shaking. "Please just—" His hand lifted, weakly finding my cheek. The warmth of his skin burned into mine like a brand I knew I would never forget. His thumb traced away a tear. "You were the only thing real," he whispered. "All of this, all the blood, the power, the empire, none of it meant anything without you." "Then why?" I choked. "Why did you keep chasing this life?" He blinked slowly, his breath uneven. "Because I thought if I built something strong enough, I could protect you from it." I wanted to scream, to hit him, to shake him back to life. Instead, I just held him tighter, my tears mixing with the rain. "You did," I said. "You did protect me. You kept your promise." His eyes softened. That rare, unguarded look I had only seen once before, years ago, when he told me he loved me for the first time. His lips moved, voice barely a whisper now. "Now you're free." And just like that, the world went silent. The wind stopped. The rain became a whisper. And Lucas stopped breathing. I pressed my forehead against his chest, listening, praying. But there was nothing. Only the echo of my heartbeat, wild and broken, in the hollow space he left behind. The sirens grew louder. Tires screeched in the distance. Voices shouted commands I could not hear. The bridge was a crime scene now, and we were just another story the city would bury. I kissed his forehead, my tears falling on his skin. "Goodbye, Luca." Then I did the hardest thing I have ever done. I let him go. I stood up, the cold wind cutting through my soaked clothes. The city lights shimmered in the rain like dying stars. For a moment, I thought about staying, about letting them take me, about ending it here beside him. But then I remembered his voice, his final words. "Now you're free." Freedom. The one thing he could never have, and the last thing he gave me. So I turned away. My steps were unsteady, but I kept walking, one breath, one heartbeat, one shattered promise at a time. Behind me, the sirens screamed his requiem. Ahead, the horizon opened, a dark, endless road disappearing into mist. I did not know where it led. I just knew I could not look back. As I walked, the first light of dawn began to break through the clouds, faint and fragile. For the first time, I let myself believe it, that maybe somehow his love had not died here. Maybe it lived inside the part of me that refused to stop moving. And with every step, I whispered the same thing under my breath, a prayer, a curse, a promise reborn. "I'll carry you with me." Silence. That was all that remained after the world fell apart. Days blurred into weeks, each one washed in gray light and half-remembered dreams. I lived like a ghost in a borrowed apartment above the harbor, breathing, existing, but never quite alive. The city below me roared and pulsed like a living thing, but I moved through it like a shadow, untouched and unseen. Every sound reminded me of him. The low growl of an engine in the street, the whisper of rain against glass, the quiet click of a lighter, all echoes of a life that had burned itself out. People told me I was lucky to have survived. They said the bridge was a miracle, that anyone had walked away from that night at all. But I did not feel lucky. I felt hollow, like the bullet that killed him had torn through me too, leaving a wound the world could not see. I tried to go back to work, to pretend that the diner's neon lights and clattering plates could fill the silence he left behind. But every face blurred into his. Every stranger's reflection in the chrome counter looked like a ghost of what I'd lost. Sometimes I caught myself waiting, turning when a door opened, expecting his voice. Expecting that impossible smile. The one that used to make me feel seen in a way that scared me. But the door always closed. And the silence always came back. At night, I dreamed of the bridge, the rain, the flashing lights, the way his body went still in my arms. I'd wake up gasping, reaching for someone who was no longer there. The sheets would be cold, the room quiet except for the ticking of the clock, cruel proof that time was still moving, even if I was not. I tried to hate him, to remember the violence, the empire, the blood that stained his name. But love is not a thing you can bury in logic. It lingers, like smoke after fire, like perfume in an empty room. He had told me once that silence was the price of survival, that those who live through too much learn to speak less, feel less, want less. Now I understood what he meant. The world moved on without him. His name disappeared from headlines. The city found new kings, new monsters to fear. And I became just another face in the crowd again. But I carried him in small ways. In the way I locked every door twice. In the way I never sat with my back to the room. in the way I still looked at the stars and whispered his name into the dark, hoping he could hear it somewhere. One evening, when the sun was bleeding out over the skyline, I found an envelope slipped under my door. No return address. No handwriting I recognized. For a moment, I just stared at it, afraid to open it, afraid not to. My hands shook as I broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a small brass key. The paper was a deed. To a property I'd never heard of. A small cafe on the corner of Harbor and Ninth. Registered in my name. I sank into the chair, the paper trembling in my hands. There was no note, no signature. But I didn't need one. I knew exactly who had sent it. He had always planned for everything, every exit, every shadow, every goodbye. Even this. The silence around me changed then. It didn't disappear, it softened. Became something I could live inside instead of drown in. I folded the deed carefully, pressed the key against my heart, and whispered into the empty room. You never stopped taking care of me, did you? Outside, the evening breeze carried the faint smell of coffee and sea salt. Like the beginning of something quiet, something new. And for the first time since the night he died, I felt the world breathing again. The city woke slowly that morning, like it too was tired of carrying ghosts. From the front window of the cafe, I watched dawn spill across the streets, soft and gold, painting over years of darkness. The sign above the door still smelled of fresh paint. The lights hummed low and warm. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe without fear clawing at my chest. I had opened the cafe quietly, without announcement or ceremony. It felt right that way. A place built not on noise, but on memory. One small corner of the world where peace could finally exist. The walls were pale cream, the tables mismatched, the coffee strong. And on the back shelf sat an old photograph of the harbor, taken long before the city belonged to anyone dangerous. Sometimes people came in and asked if I was new in town. I'd smile, pour their coffee, and say something about fresh starts. But deep down, I knew I had never really left this city, not in heart, not in soul. I had just been waiting for it to remember me. Every morning I'd open the windows, letting the sounds drift in, the rhythm of footsteps, the hum of distant engines, the laughter of strangers. The city had its own heartbeat, and for the first time, mine matched it. There were still moments when the past brushed against me. A voice that sounded too familiar, a man in a dark suit crossing the street, the metallic scent of rain on concrete. I used to flinch at those things, used to see danger in every shadow. Now, I let them come and go like passing storms. Because the truth was, the city remembered him too. Not by name, his name had long since vanished from headlines and whispers, but in the way people walked a little faster past certain corners. In the way respect still lingered in silence. In the way balance had returned, but never completely. His presence was stitched into its bones, like an unspoken rule the streets still honored. Sometimes late at night when I closed up, I'd sit at the counter with a cup of coffee gone cold, tracing the rim with my finger. I'd talk to him softly, just to fill the quiet. You would have hated how peaceful it is now, I'd whisper. Too calm, too honest. And in those moments, I could almost hear him laugh, that deep, quiet sound that always came right before trouble. The memories didn't hurt the way they used to. They had softened, turned to light instead of weight. I could remember the good without drowning in the bad. The warmth of his hand over mine, the sound of his voice when he said my name, the way he once looked at me like I was the only thing keeping him human. Sometimes I wondered if he had known that peace was never meant for him. Maybe that was why he gave it to me instead. Maybe love, in its truest form, is knowing you will never stand in the sunlight, but still clearing a space for someone else to. I had spent so long resenting the way he loved, fiercely, recklessly, completely. But now, standing in this little cafe surrounded by the smell of coffee and dawn, I understood. Love like that does not fade. It transforms. It leaves behind pieces of itself, in every choice, every heartbeat, every sunrise that feels like forgiveness. As the first customers came in, I wiped my hands on my apron and smiled. An older man thanked me for remembering his order from yesterday. A young couple argued playfully over pastries. The world went on, ordinary and alive, the way he would have wanted it. The morning light grew stronger, reflecting off the window. I caught sight of my own reflection, the faint curve of a smile I had not worn in years. And for a fleeting second, just beyond my shoulder, I saw him. Luca. Standing there, calm, proud, almost amused. The way he looked before everything went wrong. His eyes met mine in the glass, filled with that same impossible promise.
I blinked, and he was gone. But the warmth stayed. I turned the sign on the door from closed to open, my hands steady, my heart at peace. Sometimes the ones who break us also teach us how to heal. And as the sun climbed higher over the city that had taken so much from us, and given back something even greater, I whispered into the light, "The city remembers you, Luca." Then I smiled, and began to serve the first coffee of the day.